"Oh, that's just Mark's father, Elias." Brenda's voice, sharp as new glass, cut right through the noise of her housewarming party. I just stood by the sliding glass door of her gleaming white kitchen, looking out at a yard with no soul. One of her influencer friends, phone out and recording, had asked who the old man in the flannel shirt was. Brenda laughed, a high, thin sound. "He's our little charity case. We let him stay in the guest house. He's just been lost since his wife died. Honestly, it's a lot." My hands that had built an entire business from sawdust and sweat, clenched deep in my jean pockets. Charity case. But that moment of pure disrespect wasn't the start. It was just the final snap in a line that had been stretched to the breaking point for 3 long years. 3 long years. It's funny, Brenda thinks I'm lost. She thinks my life ended when my wife, Martha, passed, and that I'm just rattling around in my old workshop. What she doesn't get, what she can't get, is that my life is in my hands. Literally. My name is Elias Vance, and for 45 years, I've been a craftsman. Vance Custom Carpentry isn't just a sign on a truck, it's a promise. I build things that last. I build things that are real. My workshop smells like cedar and fresh-cut pine. Not whatever that vanilla musk plug-in is, she has poisoning the air in that new house. My hands are cracked and scarred. They've built custom libraries for university presidents, restored century-old church pews, and framed houses that will stand long after I'm gone. I still have my father's framing hammer. It's an old Estwing, the leather grip worn smooth and dark, molded to his hand and then to mine. That hammer built the house I live in. It's the hammer I held when I taught my son Mark to build his first birdhouse. He was 8. I can still see his small, freckled hand wrapped around mine, trying to lift the weight. "Not so hard, son," I told him, our breath fogging in the cool garage air. "It's not about the swing, it's about the balance. You drive the nail, you don't punish it. You build something right. It lasts forever." He learned. Or, I thought he learned. He had the eye for it. He understood the wood. He spent his high school summers on my job sites, earning his keep, learning the difference between a dovetail and a mortise and tenon. He understood it, right up until the day he brought Brenda home. That was the first real crack. 3 years ago, it wasn't my workshop. It was one of those loud, neon-lit chain restaurants with the sticky menus. TGI Fridays, I think. Mark was a different person. He kept checking his phone, fidgeting with his collar like it was choking him. Then she walked in, 10 minutes late, and didn't apologize. She didn't look at me, not really. She scanned me. Her eyes ticked off my flannel shirt, my work jeans, my calloused hands. I saw her register, no threat. Or maybe, no value. We walked out to the parking lot. She looked at my old Ford F-150. It's a 98, but there's not a speck of rust on it. I take care of my tools. "You know, Mark," she said, her voice just loud enough for me to hear, "your dad could really upgrade his image. People notice these things. Image. Not the 300,000 miles on an engine that has never failed me. Not the fact that it hauled the lumber that paid for Mark's accounting degree. Image. I tried to find common ground. Inside, I'd run my thumb over the edge of the table. "Solid wood," I said to Mark. "Looks like maple." Brenda, without looking up from her phone, just said, "I think it's just brown." Mark. My Mark. The boy who could once tell the difference between red oak and white oak from 10 feet away. Just nodded. "Yeah, Dad. Who cares?" I knew then. She wasn't just marrying my son, she was replacing him. But the real warning sign, the one that keeps me up at night, it was the table. For their wedding, I spent 3 months building them a dining room table. A masterpiece. Quarter-sawn white oak, the kind that shows that beautiful shimmering grain they call it tiger stripes. I spent 2 days just on the hand-cut dovetail joints for the legs. No screws, no nails, just skill and time. I rubbed 6 coats of tung oil into it, sanding between each one, until the wood felt like silk. I delivered it myself to their first real apartment. Mark seemed embarrassed by the effort. Brenda just called it sweet. 6 months later, I went over for a backyard BBQ they were throwing. I walked around the side of the house and I saw it. My table. It was on their back patio, in the dirt, covered in dead leaves, and holding up a half-empty bag of potting soil and some dead marigolds. One of the legs was sitting in a puddle. I just stopped. I couldn't breathe. "What's this doing out here?" I asked. My voice was quiet. Mark wouldn't look at me. He just stared at the burnt hot dogs on the grill. But Brenda, bless her heart, stepped right in. "Oh, Elias," she said with that fake bright smile. It was just so rustic, so heavy. "We're going for a more Scandinavian minimalist vibe." She pointed inside. Through the sliding glass door, I could see it. A white particle board piece of garbage from Wayfair, the kind you build with an Allen key. The kind that swells up if you spill a glass of water on it. The kind that'll be in a landfill in 3 years. I didn't say a word. I just went to my truck, got my moving blankets, and folded them. I walked back, cleared the junk off my table, and carefully wrapped each leg. "What are you doing?" Mark asked finally, his voice panicked. "It's fine, son," I said, my voice flat. "You don't want it, I'll find a home for it." He looked relieved. That's what hurt the most. Not the insult, the relief. He was relieved I was taking the evidence of his own history, his own craft, away. I loaded that 300-pound table onto my truck by myself. That was the pattern. "She'd insult my life," he'd look relieved. For 2 years it was little digs. Snide comments about my fixer-upper house, the one I built from the ground up. Jokes about my flip phone. Hints that I should really retire and take it easy. Until a month ago. The pressure for this new house. They came to my turf. To the workshop. They stood there, looking out of place in her expensive yoga pants and his brand new, uncreased sneakers, surrounded by my blueprints and sawdust. "Dad, we need to talk." Mark started. He sounded rehearsed. "We found the perfect house. It's an investment." Brenda jumped in. "It's the only house in the district with the right zoning for my new wellness business. It's $1.5 million. We need you to give it to us. Not loan, not help us with. Give." I looked at my son, the boy I taught to build. "A wellness business?" I asked. "Mark, you're an accountant. What do you know about that?" "It's a great opportunity, Dad," he said, but his eyes darted to Brenda. He was reading her script. "Brenda's going to be a massive influencer. This is our shot." "Mark, 1.5 million, I said, trying to keep my voice even. That's not just sitting in a checking account." "Come on, Dad," he scoffed, his voice losing its patience. "Your business, the properties, we know you have it." I felt the air go cold. They hadn't just been dreaming. They had been planning. They had been appraising me. I wiped my hands on a rag, slowly. I can't just give you that kind of money. I'll have to talk to Sarah." Mark rolled his eyes. "Sarah? Your part-time bookkeeper? You're the boss, Dad. Just write the check. Don't make this complicated." I just looked at him. My son, telling me not to make it complicated. "I'll see what I can do," I said, my voice quiet again. And they left, smiling. They thought they'd won. They thought the old senile man was just being difficult. They had no idea what they'd just set in motion. They had no idea who Sarah really was. They thought she was just some lady I paid by the hour to handle my receipts, someone I probably hired from a FOG, an ad in the local paper. They had no idea she was the CEO of Keys Capital, the firm that managed the Elias Vance Family Trust, a trust my wife Martha and I set up decades ago. A trust worth, well, a lot more than $1. A $5 million. They thought I was a simple old man. They thought I was their charity case, and in that moment, as I watched their car pull away from my workshop, I knew it wasn't enough to just say no. My son was lost, and he was being led by a woman who saw me as nothing but a bank account to be drained. If I just showed them the money, they'd be respectful. For a while, they'd be sweet as pie, right up until the next investment came along. No, I had to know how deep the rot went. I had to know if any part of my son was still in there. So, I set a trap. It was the simplest trap in the world. A week later, I called Mark. "Hey son," I said, putting a little wobble in my voice. I'm not feeling so great. Doctor thinks my blood pressure is high. I think you and Brenda were right. It's all just too much for me to handle." "Oh, Dad, finally," he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. That same relief I heard when I loaded up that oak table. We're just trying to help you. What do you need? I've got some, papers, statements, on my desk. Could you and Brenda come by and just help me make sense of them? I get so confused with all the numbers these days. We'll be there tonight, Dad. Don't you worry about a thing. That afternoon, I stopped by a big box store, a Best Buy, and bought one of those little nanny cams for $80. It looked like a phone charger. I plugged it into the wall in my workshop, right across from my main desk. Then, I went to my computer, logged into a secondary bank account, one I keep with a few thousand in it for shop expenses, and I used my design software to adjust the numbers. I printed out a very official-looking bank statement. It showed Elias Vance, sole proprietor. It showed a checking account balance of $51,240.38 and a savings account balance of $4,912.11. I left that paper right on top of my blueprints, next to a pile of unpaid bills for lumber and utilities. I left, went inside the house, and watched the little camera feed on my phone. They showed up right on time. They brought a box of cheap donuts from a gas station. "Dad, you here?" Mark called out, walking into the workshop. "Just in the house," I yelled back. "Help yourselves. The papers are on the desk. I'll be out in a minute." I watched them on the tiny screen. Brenda went straight for the desk, like a hawk on a field mouse. She picked up the bank statement. Mark was looking at my new table saw. "Mark, look at this," she hissed. "What?" "Look at this." She held the paper out. "He's tapped out, Mark. He's broke. This is it. That's all that's left." I watched my son's face. He didn't look sad. He didn't look worried for his old man. He looked angry. "He's lying," Mark said. "He's got to be. The business, the properties. He's hiding it from us." "Or," Brenda said, her voice turning cold and sharp, "or he's spent it all, the old fool. This is exactly what I was worried about. He's probably been giving it away. He's senile." She crumpled the paper. "This changes things. We can't ask him for the house money. We have to take control, for his own good." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, but he knew. He knew exactly what she meant. "I mean power of attorney, Mark. We have to get control of the main trust now, before he piddles away the rest of our inheritance on, I don't know, birdseed and flannel shirts." I turned the phone off. I had my answer. My son was gone. I didn't go out to the workshop. I just sat in my kitchen, in the dark, for about an hour. Then I called Sarah. "Sarah, it's Elias," I said. "It's worse than we thought. I need you to draw up the papers. The contingency plan we talked about. The craftsman's clause." There was a long silence on the other end. "Elias," she said, her voice all business, but with a note of sadness I appreciated. "Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. This will be a final act." "I'm sure," I said. They made their choice. A month went by. They must have been getting their legal papers drawn up. They were sweet to me. They called. They brought groceries from Costco. All the while, I knew they were planning to gut me, and that's what led us to the party. To the McMansion they were so proud of, the house they thought they had pressured me into buying for them. So when Brenda called me a charity case in front of her giggling, phone-wielding friends, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel hurt. I just felt the deep, cold calm of a man who knows exactly what's about to happen. I let them finish their little tour. I let them drink their champagne. And then, just as Brenda planned, she and Mark pulled me aside into the home office. It was all white and gold, with a desk that looked like it was made of plastic. "Dad," Brenda started, her voice dripping with that fake, syrupy concern. "We're so glad you came. Look, we know you've been stressed. We've been so worried about you." Mark pulled out a thick stack of papers and a fancy-looking pen. "So, we had a lawyer friend of ours draw this up. It's just to help you, Dad. It moves all your assets into a more protected account. It's for, you know." He couldn't even look me in the eye. End-of-life planning. Brenda's smile got wider. "It just gives me power of attorney, Elias, just so I can help you with the bills and make sure you're taken care of. It's just a signature, right here." She pointed to the line at the bottom. I looked at the document. "Power of attorney. Declaration of incapacity. They were trying to have me declared legally incompetent. I looked up from the papers, and I looked right at my son. "Mark," I said, my voice quiet. Did you even read this?" "Dad, come on," he scoffed, just like he did in the workshop. "It's just legal stuff. Brenda knows all about it. Just sign it." "Let us help you," I sighed. I reached into my pocket, past my pocket knife and my tape measure, and pulled out my old, scarred flip phone, the one they always made fun of. I flipped it open. The clack of the plastic was loud in that silent, sterile room. I hit one number on my speed dial. "Sarah," I said. "Yes, I'm at the new house. They just gave me the papers." The ones we talked about." I listened for a moment. "Okay, see you soon." I snapped the phone shut. Brenda was frozen, her plastic smile twitching. "Sarah? Who's Sarah? You're calling your part-time bookkeeper." "She's the head of the trust, Brenda," I said, my voice as solid as an oak beam. "And she's just pulling into the driveway. She'll be here in 5 minutes to discuss this with you." The color drained from Brenda's face. She looked at Mark, she looked at the papers, and for the first time, she looked at me. Really looked at me. And for the first time, she looked terrified. That terror was a new expression on her. I'd seen her smug, bored, and dismissive. I'd seen her fake, bright smile. But terror? That was new. That was real. The doorbell rang. It wasn't a chime. It was one of those new, electronic ding-dong sounds that plays a little song. It sounded tinny and ridiculous in the heavy silence of that white office. Brenda flinched like it was a gunshot. Mark looked at the door, then at me, then at the papers, his mind churning, trying to catch up. He looked like a man who just realized he'd been playing checkers while I was playing chess. You're bluffing," Brenda stammered, but her voice had lost its edge. I just raised an eyebrow. "I've built houses that are still standing after 100 years, Brenda. I don't bluff." We heard Mark's voice from the foyer. Hello? Can I help?" "Oh." Sarah Keyes walked into the office. She was everything Brenda tried to be. She was in a simple, perfectly tailored navy blue suit. Her hair was pulled back. She carried a slim, leather-bound portfolio. She didn't look at the house. She didn't look at the gold-plated light fixtures. She just looked at Brenda, then Mark, and then, finally, at me. She gave me a slight, respectful nod. "Elias," she said. "Sarah," I replied. "Thanks for coming." "Who the hell are you?" Brenda snapped, trying to get her power back. "This is a private family matter." Sarah turned her full attention to Brenda. It was like watching a hawk spot a mouse. "My name is Sarah Keyes," she said, her voice clear and cold, filling the room. "I am the CEO of Keyes Capital, the firm that has managed the Elias Vance Family Trust since its inception in 1988. She placed her portfolio on the plastic desk with a quiet, solid thud. "I am not," she added, "his part-time bookkeeper." Brenda's mouth opened and closed. "Trust," she whispered. "Yes, a trust worth considerably more than you seem to believe." Sarah's eyes flicked to the fraudulent power of attorney documents on the desk, a trust that I am bound to protect from. Let's call them hostile actors. "Mark!" Brenda shrieked, turning on him. "He did hide it from us. I told you he was lying. He's been tricking us." "He hasn't been tricking you, Brenda," I said, my voice quiet. "He's been testing you, and you both failed." Sarah opened her portfolio. "Which brings us to this house," she said, her voice all business. "Mark, Brenda, you seem to be under the impression that Elias gave you this $1.5 million property." "He did," Mark said, finally finding his voice. "It was a gift for our family." "No," Sarah said. She slid a single document across the desk. "It was not. The trust purchased this property. You are not the owners. You are the tenants." Brenda just stared at the paper. "Tenants? What? What is this?" "A lease. A $0 lease, to be precise," Sarah said. "A lease that was drafted by our legal team, contingent on one very specific clause. We call it the Craftsman's Clause. Elias and his wife Martha drafted it years ago. It states that the trust's assets are to be used for the family's well-being, contingent upon their respectful treatment of the trust's founder and their upholding of the family's core values: integrity, honesty, and hard work. Sarah looked up, her eyes locking on Brenda. An attempt to fraudulently seize control of the trust via a declaration of incapacity, not to mention the documented pattern of verbal and emotional abuse, constitutes a material breach of that clause. She tapped a page. Per Section 4B of the agreement you both signed, which I see you have a copy of right there, under your POA forms this breach triggers an immediate and irreversible termination of the lease. The silence was absolute. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. Loading that 300-pound oak table onto my truck by myself was a turning point. It was quiet work, just the sound of the straps ratcheting tight and the birds chirping in their yard, completely unaware. I wrapped it in the moving blankets with the care it deserved. The insult of them leaving it in the dirt was one thing, but seeing the look on my son's face as I took it, it wasn't shame. It wasn't guilt. It was relief. He was glad to have the evidence of my life, of his life, gone. That was a new kind of cold. After that day, things were quiet for a few months. They didn't call much. They didn't come over for dinner. I almost let myself hope they'd felt some shame, that maybe Brenda's influence was waning. I buried myself in my work. I took on a big restoration project for the old city library, and the smell of old wood and varnish was a comfort. But they weren't ashamed. They were just aiming higher. They showed up at my workshop about a month ago. I remember the day because I was sharpening my set of chisels, getting that perfect mirrored edge. The sound of their expensive car pulling up on the gravel was all wrong. They didn't come in cautiously. They strode in like they owned the place. Brenda was in one of her yoga outfits that probably cost more than my work boots, and Mark had on a brand new pair of sneakers that hadn't seen a single speck of dust. "Dad, we need to talk," Mark started. He didn't say hi. He didn't ask how I was. He sounded rehearsed. I set my chisel down on the oilstone. "Okay," I said, wiping my hands on my rag. "What's on your mind?" "We found the perfect house." Brenda jumped in, her voice bright and brittle. "It's this amazing new build in the Heights. It's got the modern farmhouse look, but, classy." "It's an investment, Dad," Mark said, and I could hear her words coming out of his mouth. "It's our future." I leaned against my workbench. "That's great, son. The market's high, but if you've been saving..." Brenda let out that little laugh, the one that always sounded like breaking glass. "Oh, Elias, you're sweet. No, we're not saving for it. We need you to buy it for us." I just looked at them. The drone of the exhaust fan filled the silence. "Buy it for you. It's $1.5 million, Mark said, like he was telling me the time. "It's the only house in the entire district that has the right zoning for Brenda's new wellness business. It's a ground floor opportunity." "A wellness business?" I asked, looking at Mark. "Son, you're an accountant. What do you know about wellness?" "It's a great opportunity," Mark said, his voice getting louder, defensive. "Brenda's going to be a massive influencer. She's already got, 10,000 followers. This is our shot. We can't let it slip by just because of a cash flow issue." I looked from my son, a man I'd taught to value hard work and tangible skill, to his wife, a woman who valued followers. "You're not talking about a cash flow issue, Mark. You're talking about $1.5 million. You're asking me to give you that." "Well, yeah," Brenda said, stepping forward. "Who else would we ask? It's not like you're using it. You're just here, in this dusty old shop. This is your legacy, Elias. It's for your family, for your future grandkids." She was using my wife's words against me. Martha had always talked about legacy, but when she said it, she meant values. She meant character. Brenda meant square footage and quartz countertops. "Mark," I said, my voice flat, "I can't just write a check for $1.5 million. That's not how it works." "Why not?" he snapped. His face was getting red. "Come on, Dad. We're not stupid. We know what this business is worth. We know about the properties you own downtown. You're loaded. You're hoarding it. Hoarding it." The word hung in the air, thick and ugly, smelling like greed. The money he was talking about was the money Martha and I had saved for 40 years. It was late nights, skipped vacations, driving the same truck for 2 decades. It was her, packing my lunch every single day so I wouldn't waste money on fast food. It was our life. "I can't just drain the trust, son," I said, my voice hardening. I'll have to talk to Sarah." Mark threw his hands up in the air. Sarah! Again with Sarah. Your part-time bookkeeper? Dad, you're the boss. Why do you have to ask her permission? Just write the check. Don't make this so complicated. He was shouting now, yelling at me in my own workshop. It's complicated, Mark, I said, because it's not your money. Brenda's face went dark. You see, she hissed at Mark, he's not going to help us. He'd rather sit here and let his money rot than see his own son succeed. He's selfish. I'll see what I can do, I said, turning back to my chisels. It was a dismissal. You'd better, Brenda said, her voice low and threatening, because we are getting that house, Elias, one way or another. They stormed out, and the sound of their tires spinning on the gravel was like a final insult. I looked down at the chisel in my hand. My hand was shaking, not from fear, from a rage so cold and deep it scared me. They hadn't just asked for money, they had demanded it. They had threatened me. They had called me selfish for not handing over my life's work. I picked up my phone. Not the flip phone. My smartphone. The one I kept in my desk drawer. I pulled up the Nanny Cam app I'd installed in my workshop a year ago, right after Brenda had lost a piece of Martha's jewelry while visiting. I hit save clip. I had it all. The demands, the threats, the look on my son's face. I knew then. This wasn't a request. It was a declaration of war. And I knew, with a certainty that settled in my bones, that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They thought I was an old fool. They forgot I was a master craftsman. And I was about to build the most careful, solid, and escape-proof trap they would ever see. It's one thing to build a cabinet from raw lumber. You respect the wood, you follow the grain, you join it with honesty. It's a whole other thing to build a cage for your own son. But that's what they had forced me to do. I had the video of their threats, the demands, the undisguised greed. That was my foundation. Now, I needed the walls. I waited 2 days. I let the silence stretch out, let them wonder, let them get nervous. Then, early on a Wednesday morning, I called Mark. I made sure to do it at an hour when I'd sound groggy and frail. I held the phone, my old flip phone, and took a few shallow breaths, practicing the wobble in my voice. Mark, I said, my voice cracking just right. Son. Dad, what's wrong? You sound weird. I'm not feeling so great, Mark, I whispered. The doctor, he's worried about my blood pressure. He says the stress. It's all too much for me. I heard a small sound on his end. The sound of him sitting up in bed, suddenly alert. Dad, what? What stress? What's going on? It's the numbers, I said, letting my voice trail off. The bills, the business, you and Brenda. You were right. I can't handle it all anymore. I get so confused. That was the bait, the word they'd been waiting for, confused. I've got all these papers on my desk. Bank statements, bills, I don't even know what's what. I'm scared I'm missing things, son. I'm scared I'm losing it. Could you and Brenda just come by tonight? Help me make sense of them. His voice changed. The sleepiness was gone, replaced by a sharp, slick, professional concern. It was the voice of a predator. Oh, Dad, of course we will. We were just worried about you. Don't you touch a thing. We'll be over tonight around 7. We'll sort everything out. You just rest. Okay. He sounded so caring. It made my stomach turn. I hung up and got to work. My first stop wasn't the bank. It was Best Buy. I walked past the giant, screaming televisions and the kids playing video games, and went straight to the smart home aisle. A young guy in a blue shirt tried to sell me a whole security system. Just need a charger, I mumbled, pointing at a small white box on the hook. For my phone. It was a Nanny Cam, disguised perfectly as a USB charging block. $80. The best tool I'd ever bought. I went back to my workshop. My hands were steady now. I was in my element. I plugged the charger into the wall outlet right over my workbench, the one I use for my battery packs. It had a perfect, high-definition view of my entire desk. I linked it to my smartphone, tested the feed, crystal clear. Now, for the stage. I went to my computer, not the old clunker in the shop, but my high-end CAD station in my house. I pulled up my shop's local checking account, the one I use for lumber and sandpaper. It had about 6,000 in it. I logged into my design software, the program I use to draft million-dollar homes. It's amazing what you can build with that thing. I adjusted. The bank statement. I'm a craftsman. My attention to detail is my trademark. When I printed it out, it was a masterpiece of forgery. Elias Vance, sole proprietor. Checking account balance, $51,240.38. Savings account balance, $4,912.11. It was just enough to look like I hadn't been lying about having money, but that I was, as Brenda suspected, tapped out. But just printing it wasn't enough. It had to look real. It had to look pathetic. I crumpled it in my fist, then smoothed it back out, giving it that lived-in, worried-over feel. I took the dregs of my morning coffee and let a single drop stain the corner. I took a red pen and circled a fake overdraft fee from last month. Then I staged my desk. I took that dummy statement, and I didn't just place it. I strewed it. I put it on top of a pile of real and deliberately unpaid utility bills and lumber invoices. I grabbed a sticky note and scrawled, "Reminder, pay mortgage," and stuck it on the monitor. I've owned my house and shop outright for 20 years. The whole scene, the messy desk, the overdue bills, the coffee-stained, low-balance statement, it didn't just tell a story. It screamed one, confused, failing, senile. That night, at 6:59 p.m., their headlights cut across my yard. They came in bearing gifts, a Costco rotisserie chicken, a 24-pack of paper towels, and a case of bottled water. The classic "we're just here to help" starter pack. "Elias," Brenda chirped, bustling in and putting the chicken on my counter. "You poor thing, you look terrible." Just tired," I mumbled, rubbing my temples. "My head is pounding." "Well, you go sit down," she said, patting my arm. Her nails felt like little claws. "Mark and I will go tackle that desk. We'll have it sorted out in no time. You don't worry your head about it." "Thank you," I whispered. The papers are just all over." "We know, Dad. We'll handle it," Mark said, his voice full of that same slick concern. They disappeared into the workshop. I heard the door click shut. I walked into my dark living room, sat in my old recliner, and pulled out my smartphone. My heart was thumping against my ribs, a heavy, painful beat. I opened the NannyCam app. The feed flickered on. I could see the back of Mark's head and Brenda's profile, clear as day. The audio was sharp. Brenda went straight for the desk. She didn't tidy. She hunted. She snatched up the dummy statement. "Mark," she hissed. "Look at this. Look at this." I watched my son lean over her shoulder. His whole body went rigid. 50 grand. His voice was low and full of an anger that chilled me to the bone. "That's it?" He has to be lying. The downtown properties, the business. "He's not lying, you idiot," Brenda snapped, her voice pure venom. She crumpled the paper in her fist. "He's spent it, or he's confused and he's lost it. Look at this desk. It's a pigsty. He's senile. The old fool is tapped out." I watched Mark run a hand through his hair. "So, the house. The $1.5 million. Forget the house," she shrieked, and then lowered her voice to a conspiratorial hiss. "This changes everything. We can't ask him for money he doesn't have. We have to take control of the trust now, before he piddles away whatever's left on flannel shirts and birdseed." What do you mean, take control?" Mark asked. But he knew. His voice was weak. He knew what she meant. "I mean, power of attorney," she said, her voice cold and clinical. "I mean a conservatorship. We go to a judge. We show him this." She gestured at the messy desk, the overdue bills. "We tell them he's confused. He's a danger to himself. He's forgetful and erratic. We have him declared legally incompetent. It's for his own good, Mark. It's the only way to protect our inheritance." I held my breath. I watched my son. The boy I'd taught to swing a hammer. The boy I'd taught to value honesty and hard work. He stood there for a long, silent moment. I saw his shoulders slump. He didn't defend me. He didn't protest. He nodded. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, what do we need to do?" I hit record. I saved the file to the cloud. I turned the phone off. I sat in the dark, my old recliner groaning under my weight. The smell of the rotisserie chicken, their peace offering, filled the house. It smelled like rot, When they came back in 20 minutes later, their faces were plastered with concern. "Dad," Mark said, it's a bit of a mess in there, but don't you worry. We're going to get our lawyer to help us organize things for you. We're going to take care of everything, Elias," Brenda said, smiling, her eyes bright and dead. "I know you will," I said. My voice was hollow. You're such good kids." I locked the door behind them. I walked to my sink. I scrubbed my hands, trying to get the feel of her touch off my arm. I threw their chicken, still warm, directly into the outside garbage can. Then I picked up my phone and made my second call. "Sarah," I said, my voice no longer weak, but hard as coffin nails. "It's Elias. They took the bait. They're making a move. I'm uploading the video file to you now. It's time. Draw up the Craftsman's Clause papers. And get the legal team ready. It's going to be a fight." And that fight. That was a month ago. A month of me going to my shop every morning at 6 a.m., just like I always have. A month of sanding and sawing and breathing in the smell of cedar, while my legal team, led by Sarah, built their case. It was a month of them being sweet as pie. They'd call me. "Just checking in, Dad. How's the blood pressure?" They'd bring me groceries from Costco, mountains of paper towels and bottled water, things I never use. They were taking care of me. All of it. All their fake concern and my quiet, steady work. It all led to this. I'm standing in this ridiculous, all-white McMansion. The party is thumping around me. The charity case comment Brenda made is still hanging in the air, stinging like sweat in a fresh cut. These aren't guests. They're an audience. Everyone is holding a phone, filming their amazing new life and their journey. It's not a home. It's a content house. Brenda glides over to me, her smile looking like it was ironed on. "Elias, there you are," she trills, like she just found a misplaced decoration. "Listen, Mark and I have a little surprise for you. Something we've been working on, just for you. Can you come to the office? We want to show you." She puts her hand on my back, her nails digging in slightly, steering me. She guides me out of the noise and into a room that's just as fake as the rest of the house. The office. It's all white and gold. The desk doesn't look like it's ever been used. It's a prop, just like everything else in their lives. Mark is already in there, standing by the window, looking out at the yard he didn't build. He's fidgeting with a new, expensive watch, one I recognize. I'd seen the bill for it, back when I was still, foolishly, paying his credit card. He can't meet my eyes. Brenda shuts the door. The thumping bass of the party music goes dull. And just like that, her face changes. The bright, bubbly hostess smile clicks off. It's gone, replaced by that slick, professional concern I saw on the nanny cam. The shark's smile. "Dad," Mark starts, and his voice cracks. He clears his throat and tries again. "Dad, we've been so worried about you lately." "So worried," Brenda says, walking over and perching on the edge of the plastic desk. She's all business now. "Elias, with your blood pressure and, she taps her temple. "Forgetting things. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. We don't want anyone taking advantage of you." The irony is so thick I could cut it with a handsaw. Mark, taking his cue, walks to the desk and slides a thick stack of papers across its gleaming surface. A fancy, gold-plated pen is clipped to the top page. "So," Mark says, still staring at his watch as if it holds all the answers, "we had a lawyer friend of ours draw this up. It's just to help you, Dad. It just moves all your assets into a more protected account." Brenda cuts in, her voice smooth as veneer. "It's for, end-of-life planning. It just makes things simpler. For everyone." I look at the papers. I don't need to read the fine print. I built this trap. I know what it is. But I look anyway, just to see the words in print. Durable power of attorney. And right below it, on a separate page, declaration of incapacity. This is it. This is the knife. They're not just trying to steal my money, the money I earned with 40 years of sweat and sawdust. They're trying to steal my name, my voice. They're trying to go to a judge and have me legally erased, declared a non-person, an old fool who can't be trusted with his own life. All so they can have this, a white plastic box of a house and a wellness business. I look up. They're both watching me, their faces masks of practiced, loving concern. They think I'm a confused old man. They see the flannel shirt. They see the calloused hands. They see the charity case they talked about to their friends. They have no idea those calloused hands built a trust that could buy this whole neighborhood. They have no idea I've been waiting for this exact moment for 31 days. Brenda's smile is wide, showing all her teeth. It just gives me power of attorney, Elias. Full control. Just so I can help with the bills and make sure you're safe. It's just a signature. Right here. She points to the line at the bottom, her long red fingernail tapping the page. Tap, 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 the only sound in the room. I look at the line. Then I look up. I look past Brenda's hungry, empty eyes, and I look right at my son. The boy I taught to build a birdhouse. The boy I taught to check his work, to measure twice and cut once. My voice is quiet. Mark, did you even read this? He scoffs. It's a weak, nervous sound. Dad, come on, it's just legal stuff. Brenda knows all about it. We just want to help you. Please. His voice drops to a desperate plea. Just sign it. He's pleading, not for my health, not for my safety. He's pleading for the $1.5 million house he's standing in. He's pleading for the inheritance he thinks I'm about to sign over. This is the moment. The final test. The last chance for the man I raised to show up. He doesn't. He just pushes the pen a little closer to my hand. I sigh. It's a long, slow sigh. It's the sound of a door closing for the last time. It's the sound of a father letting go. I don't reach for their fancy gold pen. I reach into my jean pocket. My hand brushes past my pocket knife, my small tape measure, and I pull out my old, scarred flip phone, the one they always make fun of. I flip it open. The clack of the plastic is loud in that silent, sterile room. Brenda freezes. Her smile twitches. What? What are you doing? I hold up one finger. Just a second, dear. I hit one number on my speed dial. It rings once. Sarah, I say, my voice suddenly clear and strong. No wobble, no confusion. Yes, I'm at the new house. They just gave me the papers. The ones we talked about. I pause, listening. Okay, see you soon. I snap the phone shut. Sarah, Brenda whispers, her face going pale. Who's Sarah? You're calling your part-time bookkeeper. She's the head of the trust, Brenda, I say, my voice as solid as an oak beam. And she's just pulling into the driveway. She'll be here in 5 minutes to discuss this with you. The color drained from Brenda's face. She looked at Mark. She looked at the fraudulent papers on her plastic desk. And for the first time, she looked at me. Really looked at me. And for the first time, she looked terrified. You're bluffing, she stammered. But her voice was a thin, reedy thing. It had no power. You're a carpenter. You're not. You don't have a trust. I build things, Brenda, I said, my voice quiet. Houses, cabinets, a life. I don't bluff. Mark was just staring at the door, his mouth open, his mind churning, trying to catch up. He looked like a man who'd been told the sky was green. Dad. What? Who? The doorbell rang. It wasn't a normal chime. It was one of those new electronic ding-dong sounds that plays a little multi-note song. In the heavy, sterile silence of that white office, it sounded tinny and ridiculous. Brenda flinched like it was a gunshot. Mark, I said, my voice firm. Why don't you go let Sarah in? She's a guest. Mark looked at Brenda, but she had no answers for him. He wiped his damp palms on his brand new, expensive jeans and walked out of the office on unsteady legs. We heard him cross the foyer. We heard the heavy front door swing open. The thumping bass of the party music from the backyard flooded in for a second, and then it just stopped. We heard Mark say, hello? Can I help? Oh, and then there was silence. The party was still going, but the focus of the entire house had just shifted to the front door. A moment later, Sarah Keyes walked into the office. She was everything Brenda tried to be, without any of the effort. She was in her 50s, wearing a simple, perfectly tailored navy blue suit that probably cost more than Brenda's entire influencer wardrobe. Her silver gray hair was pulled back in a tight, professional bun. She wasn't carrying a designer purse. She was carrying a slim, dark red, leather-bound portfolio. She didn't look at the gaudy gold light fixtures. She didn't look at the all-white furniture. Her eyes swept the room once, taking in the scene with a cold, appraising glance. She looked at Brenda, who was still perched on the desk, trying to look casual. She looked at the power of attorney papers. She looked at Mark, who was hovering in the doorway like a lost child. Then, her eyes landed on me, and her entire face softened just for a fraction of a second. She gave me a slight, respectful nod. "Elias," she said. Her voice was clear and low, with no hint of drama. It was the voice of pure, unshakable competence. "Sarah," I replied. "Thanks for coming on such short notice." Brenda, seeing her power in the room evaporate, tried to get it back. She slid off the desk, planting herself between me and Sarah. "I don't know who you are," she snapped, "but this is a private family matter. You need to leave." Sarah turned her full attention to Brenda. It was like watching a hawk spot a field mouse. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "My name," she said, her voice cutting through the room, "is Sarah Keyes. I am the CEO and lead counsel for Keyes Capital, the private equity firm that has managed the Elias Vance Family Trust since its inception in 1988. She took a step forward and placed her leather portfolio on Brenda's white plastic desk. It made a quiet, solid thud, the sound of real-world weight. "I am not," she added, her eyes locking on Brenda's, his part-time bookkeeper. Brenda's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "Trust," Mark whispered from the doorway. He looked like he was going to be sick. "Yes, Mark. The trust," Sarah said, turning to him. "The one your father and mother, Martha, built over 45 years. The one you have been attempting to defraud." "That's not true," Brenda shrieked, finding her voice. It was high and ugly. We were trying to help him. He's confused. He's senile. He's been losing money. He's been testing you." Sarah interrupted, her voice like ice. "And you have failed. Spectacularly." She opened her portfolio. "Let's talk about the numbers, shall we? You seem to believe Elias is tapped out, that he's a charity case. Your words, I believe." Brenda's face went white. She looked toward the open office door, where some of her influencer friends were now standing, phones out, recording. "The Elias Vance Family Trust." Sarah continued, reading from a document in a clear monotone, "which holds all assets from Vance Custom Carpentry, its associated commercial real estate holdings, and its diversified stock portfolio, has a current valuation of $28,450,000 and change." A collective gasp went through the guests in the hallway. Brenda looked like she'd been slapped. 28. Mark stumbled into the room. "But the statement, the 50 grand, was a forgery," I said, speaking for the first time. "A piece of bait, the kind of thing a craftsman makes to test a joint. I wanted to see if you'd try to help me, or try to gut me. And you chose to gut him," Sarah said. "Which brings us to this house." She slid a new document across the desk, right on top of their power of attorney papers. "You seem to be under the impression that Elias gave you this $1.5 million property." "He did," Mark yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. "It was a gift for our new life." "No," Sarah said simply. "It was not. The trust purchased this property, in cash, 3 weeks ago. You are not the owners. You are, and I quote the legal agreement, the tenants." Brenda snatched the paper. "Tenants? What? What is this? A lease." "A $0 lease, to be precise," Sarah confirmed. "A conditional lease, which you both signed last week, assuming it was just, quote, boring closing paperwork. I suggest you read the fine print. Specifically, Section 4. B. We call it the Craftsman's Clause." "The what?" Mark said. "The Craftsman's Clause," I said, stepping forward. "My wife and I put it in the trust 30 years ago. It says that the family's well-being is the trust's priority, contingent on them upholding the values we built our life on: honesty, integrity, hard work, and respect for the family's founder." Sarah tapped the document. "An attempt to fraudulently seize control of the trust via a declaration of incapacity," she said, her eyes boring into Brenda. "An act of elder abuse, which we have documented." "You can't prove that," Brenda shrieked. "Can't I?" I said. I pulled my smartphone from my other pocket. I tapped the screen, and the audio from the nanny cam filled the room. "He's senile. The old fool is tapped out. We have to take control. We have him declared legally incompetent. It's for his own good, Mark. Okay. What do we need to do? Mark's own voice, whispering, okay, echoed in the sterile office. He sank into one of the white chairs, his head in his hands. Brenda stared at the phone, her face a mask of pure, unfiltered hatred. That audio, Sarah continued, her voice clinical, along with your public and recorded verbal abuse of Elias at this party, constitutes a material, non-negotiable, and irreversible breach of the Craftsman's Clause. She closed her portfolio. The snap of the leather was the only sound. The lease is terminated effective immediately. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. Sarah's words just hung there in the sterile air. They were plain, they were simple, and they were as final as a coffin lid. The guests in the hallway were silent, their phones all pointed at us, recording every second of the collapse. This was way better content than a house tour. Brenda was the first to move. Her face, which had been pale with shock, suddenly turned a deep, ugly red, her hands clenched into fists. "You can't!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. You senile old bastard! This is our house! We signed the papers! We'll sue you! We'll sue you for everything you have! We'll tell everyone what you did!" She was screaming, spittle flying from her mouth. It was a full-on, end-of-the-world tantrum. Sarah didn't even flinch. She just looked at Brenda with a kind of mild, professional curiosity, like a scientist observing an insect. "Please do," Sarah said, her voice still perfectly calm. "Our legal team would be delighted to discuss these." She tapped the fraudulent power of attorney documents on the desk. "And this," she gestured to my smartphone, which was still playing the audio of them plotting. "A civil suit for fraud, plus a criminal referral for felony elder abuse. I'd say your legal position is unpromising." Brenda just stared at her. The word felony had finally gotten through. She looked at Mark, expecting him to do something, to fix it. "Mark, say something, tell them, don't just sit there." But Mark wasn't looking at her. He was staring at me. His face was a wreck. It wasn't anger. It was a complete hollowing out. It was the face of a man who just watched his entire life, every belief he had, burn down in 30 seconds. The expensive watch on his wrist, the brand new jeans, the $1.5 million house, all of it was just ash. "Dad," he whispered. His voice was broken. It was the voice of the 8-year-old boy in the garage, the one who just smashed his thumb with my hammer. "Dad, why?" That one word. Why? It hit me harder than Brenda's screaming. She was screaming about money. He was finally asking the real question. I looked past Sarah. I looked past Brenda's hateful face. I looked right at my son, and I didn't feel rage anymore. I just felt this deep, aching sadness. This was the moment. This was the tough love I'd been dreading. This was the last, most painful lesson. "Because I failed you, Mark," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through everything. "What?" "I failed you," I repeated, and I took a step toward him. "I gave you everything. Your first car? I bought it. Your college tuition? Paid for. The down payment on your first apartment? A gift from me. The credit card you've been using for her." I glanced at Brenda. "I've been paying the bill, every month, for 3 years. Mark flinched. He hadn't known. "Every time you stumbled, son, I was there. I was there to catch you before you hit the ground. I never let you fail. I never let you feel the consequences of your own choices. I was so afraid of you getting hurt that I never let you grow. I never let you build anything for yourself." I held up my hands, my scarred, calloused, working man's hands. "I taught you how to use these," I said. "I taught you that value comes from this, from the work, from the honesty of the wood. But you forgot. You let her." I pointed at Brenda. "Convince you that value was something you could get on Instagram, that it was something you could steal from a confused old man." I pointed at the white plastic desk. This house, this image, this isn't success, Mark. It's a prop. It's particle board with a cheap veneer, and when you put a little pressure on it, it falls apart." Mark looked down at his own hands, soft, uncalloused, an accountant's hands. Then he looked at the gleaming gold watch on his wrist, the one I'd paid for. With a shaking hand, he fumbled with the clasp, tore it off his wrist, and threw it on the desk. It skidded across the plastic and hit the floor. "Dad," he whispered, his voice choking. I'm so sorry. I didn't." "I know, son," I said. And that was the tragedy of it. He didn't know. He hadn't seen it, because I had never let him see. My protection had been his poison. But sorry doesn't build a house. Sorry doesn't fix a foundation. You have to build this one yourself. From the ground up. Brenda let out a sound. A low, animalistic wail of pure loss. She grabbed one of the gold-plated lamps off the desk and threw it against the wall, where it shattered. "I hate you," she screamed at me. "I hate you." She turned and stormed out of the office, pushing through the crowd of stunned, silent guests, her influencer career evaporating in real time. Mark didn't move. He just sat there, in the white chair, in the white room, with his head in his hands. A broken man in a broken house. I looked at him for a long moment. My son. Lost. I'd done what I had to do. The amputation was complete. Now, he had to see if he could heal. "Sarah," I said, my voice heavy. "Let's go. We're done here." I turned my back on the office, on the house, on the ruins of my son's life. I walked out through the foyer, past the silent, staring guests, and out the front door. The cool night air hit my face and it felt like the first clean breath I'd taken in 3 years. Brenda was just staring, her mouth open, the words 28 million echoing in the sterile, silent office. She looked at Mark, who was white as a primed canvas. Sarah didn't give them a moment to recover. She slid a new document from her leather portfolio and placed it on the desk, right on top of their fraudulent power of attorney papers. "Which brings us," she said, her voice cutting, "to this house." "What? What about it?" Mark stammered, his eyes glued to the new document. "You seem to be under the impression that Elias gave you this $1.5 million property," Sarah said. "He did," Brenda shrieked, finding her voice. "It was high and desperate. It was a gift. For our new life. For our business." "No," Sarah said simply. "It was not. The trust purchased this property, in cash, 3 weeks ago. You are not the owners." Mark stumbled forward. What are you talking about?" "We signed. We were at the closing." "You signed a lease agreement," Sarah stated, her voice devoid of emotion. "You are the tenants." Brenda snatched the paper. Her eyes scanned it wildly. "Lease? A lease? This is trickery. We'd never agree to that." "You already did," Sarah said. "You were so focused on the square footage and the move-in date, you assumed the reams of paperwork from the trust's legal team were just, and I quote your email, boring closing stuff. You signed it, both of you. A $0 lease, to be precise," Sarah continued, as Mark sank into one of the white plastic chairs. "A conditional lease, contingent on one very specific clause that Elias and his wife drafted into the trust 30 years ago. We call it the Craftsman's Clause." I finally spoke. My voice was quiet, but it filled the room. "My wife and I said, we believed that what we built, it wasn't just about money, it was about values, honesty, integrity, hard work, respect." Sarah tapped the document. "The Craftsman's Clause states that all beneficiaries of the trust are to be supported in their well-being, contingent upon their upholding of those core values, specifically by showing respectful treatment to the trust's founder." She looked up, her eyes locking on Brenda, who was frozen in horror. "An attempt to fraudulently seize control of the trust via a declaration of incapacity," she said, her voice like ice. "An act of elder abuse, which we have documented." You can't prove that," Brenda whispered. "I can," I said. I pulled my smartphone from my other pocket, the one they didn't know about. I hit play. My voice filled the room, wobbly and weak. "I'm scared. I'm losing it. Could you and Brenda just come by?" Then Brenda's, sharp and clear. "He's senile. The old fool is tapped out. We have to take control. We have him declared legally incompetent. It's for his own good, Mark. And finally, my son's weak and final. Okay. What do we need to do?" Mark let out a sound, a low, strangled sob. He put his head in his hands. The guests in the hallway, their phones held high, were perfectly silent, capturing every single damning word. Sarah let the audio play for a few more seconds before I clicked it off. That audio, Sarah continued, as if there had been no interruption, along with your public and recorded verbal abuse of Elias at this party. She gestured to the charity case comment. Constitutes a material, non-negotiable, and irreversible breach of the craftsman's clause. She closed her portfolio. The snap of the leather was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. The lease is terminated, effective immediately. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. 30 days. Brenda's voice cracked, shattering the silence. You can't. You senile old bastard. This is our house. We'll sue you. We'll sue you for everything you have. She was screaming, her face purple, looking wildly at the guests in the hall who were all filming. Sarah didn't even blink. Please do, she said, her voice as calm as a frozen lake. Our legal team would be delighted to discuss these. She tapped the fraudulent power of attorney documents on the desk. And, of course, the nanny cam footage, a civil suit for fraud, plus a criminal referral for felony elder abuse. I'd say your legal position is unpromising. The word felony hit Brenda like a physical blow. She looked at Mark, desperate. Mark, say something. Don't just sit there. Tell them. But Mark just crumpled. He sank into one of the white plastic office chairs, his head in his hands. Brenda saw it. She saw he was broken. She saw it was over. She let out a sound, a low, animal wail of pure loss, and grabbed one of the gold-plated, useless lamps off the desk. She threw it against the wall, where it shattered. I hate you, she shrieked at me. I hate you. And then she was gone, pushing through the crowd of stunned, silent guests, her influencer career evaporating in real time. The silence she left behind was heavy, broken only by Mark's ragged breathing. It was just us. Me, Sarah, and my son. He wasn't looking at the papers. He wasn't looking at the broken lamp. He was staring at me, his face a total wreck. It wasn't anger. It was a hollowing out. It was the face of a man who just watched his entire world, every belief he had, burn down in 30 seconds. Dad, he whispered. His voice was broken. It was the voice of the 8-year-old boy in the garage, the one who'd just smashed his thumb with my hammer. Dad, why? That one word. Why? It hit me harder than all of Brenda's screaming. She was screaming about money. He was, finally, asking the real question. I looked past Sarah, right at my son, and the rage I'd been holding onto for 3 years, it drained away. All that was left was this deep, aching sadness. This was the moment. This was the tough love I'd been dreading. This was the last, most painful lesson. Because I failed you, Mark, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through everything. He looked up, his eyes red and confused. What? I failed you, I repeated, and I took a step toward him. I gave you everything. Your first car? I bought it. Your college tuition? Paid for. The down payment on your first apartment. A gift from me. The credit card you've been using. I glanced at the door Brenda had fled through. I've been paying the bill every month for 3 years. You thought you were a successful accountant. You were a 35-year-old man on his father's allowance. He flinched. He hadn't known. Every time you stumbled, son, I was there. I was there to catch you before you hit the ground. I never let you fail. I was so afraid of you getting hurt that I never let you grow. I never let you build anything for yourself. I held up my hands, my scarred, calloused, working man's hands. I taught you how to use these, I said. I taught you that value comes from this, from the work, from the honesty of the wood. But you forgot. You let her convince you that value was something you could get on Instagram, that it was something you could steal from a confused old man. I pointed at the white plastic desk, at the cheap, hollow core door of the office. This house, this image, this isn't real, Mark. It's particle board with a cheap veneer. And the second you put a little real-world pressure on it, it falls apart. He looked down at his own hands, soft, uncalloused. Then he looked at the gleaming, expensive watch on his wrist, the one I'd paid for. With a shaking hand, he fumbled with the clasp, tore it off, and threw it on the desk. It skidded across the plastic surface. "Dad," he whispered, his voice choking. He was weeping now, openly. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't. I'm so sorry." "I know, son," I said, and that was the tragedy of it. He didn't know. My protection had been his poison. My voice was heavy, tired. "But sorry doesn't build a house. Sorry doesn't fix a foundation. You have to build this one yourself, from the ground up." I looked at him for one last, long moment. My son, lost. I'd done what I had to do. The amputation was complete. Now, he had to see if he could heal. "Sarah," I said, turning away. "Let's go. We're done here." I turned my back on the office, on the house, on the ruins of my son's life. I walked out through the foyer, past the silent, staring guests, and out the front door. The cool night air hit my face, and it felt like the first clean breath I'd taken in 3 years. The cool night air hit my face as I walked away from that white plastic house, and it felt like the first clean breath I'd taken in 3 years. Sarah's car was waiting at the curb. I got in. We didn't say a word for the first 10 minutes. There was nothing left to say. The loudest sounds had already been made, the sound of a life built on particle board, collapsing under its own weight. That was 6 months ago. Today the air is different. It's not cool and sharp. It's hot, dry, and smells like fresh-cut pine, sawdust, and sweat, and it feels even better. I'm on a different kind of job site. There are no influencer clients, no imported exotic woods, no arguments over quartz countertops. It's a Habitat for Humanity build, out on the east side of town. A hot, treeless lot where a dozen families are working side by side with us, hammering and sawing, literally raising their own roofs. "Okay, listen up," I shout, my voice carrying over the sounds of the saws and the thud of hammers. "When you're framing a wall, your layout is everything. Measure twice, cut once. But I'm telling you to think 3 times. You see this chalk line?" I point to the blue line we snapped on the subfloor. "This line is your promise. You make this line straight. The house is straight. You get this wrong." A young volunteer, a college kid with headphones around his neck, pipes up, "What happens if you get it wrong, Mr. Vance?" I stop and look at him. I let a small smile touch my lips. "You tear it all down," I say. "You tear it all down to the foundation, and you start over. No shortcuts." I go back to showing him how to properly crown a stud, how to find the natural curve in the wood and make it work for the house, not against it. My hands feel good. They feel right. That old Est-wing hammer, my father's hammer, feels perfectly balanced in my grip. I'm not just building a house. I'm teaching. I'm passing on something real, something that lasts. A quiet sedan, way too clean for this dusty lot, pulls up. Sarah gets out, wearing slacks and a sensible blouse. She's got her sunglasses on and she's carrying a manila folder. She navigates the ruts in the dirt, her heels sinking in slightly. "Elias," she says, walking over to me, "you're a hard man to find on a weekday." "I'm usually wherever the work is, Sarah," I say, wiping the sweat from my brow with my sleeve. "Well," she says, and I can hear the smile in her voice. "The Trust Board held their meeting. They approved your new initiative, the Vance Craftsman's Fund. We are officially funding the next 10 houses in this development." I nod, looking out over the lot. 10 houses, 10 new foundations. "That's good," I say, my voice a little thick. "That's real good. Martha would have liked that." "She would have," Sarah agrees quietly. She's the one who wrote the give-back clause into the trust agreement, remember? I turn back to my group of volunteers, ready to get them started on nailing the plates. As I do, my eyes scan across the site. And I see him. He's over by the main lumber pile. He's not in an expensive suit or a brand-new, uncreased pair of sneakers. He's in worn-out jeans, a simple gray t-shirt that's dark with sweat, and a pair of new, but already scuffed work boots. He's got a tool belt on, and it's hanging awkwardly on his hips, like he's not used to the weight. He's not supervising, he's not on his phone. He's just working. He's hauling a 16-foot 2x6 from the pile to the miter saw station. He's doing it all wrong, trying to muscle it from the middle instead of balancing it on his shoulder. It's heavy, and it's awkward, and he's struggling. The site foreman, a tough old guy named Sal, barks at him. "Hey, Greenhorn, get your other hand under it. Use your legs, not your back. I'm not paying for you to throw a disc." Mark doesn't snap back. He doesn't make an excuse. He doesn't complain. He just does it. He stops, flushes red, readjusts his grip, bends his knees, and hefts the board. He carries it over to the saw. He's been here, on this site, for 2 months. He showed up one day and just signed up on the volunteer sheet. He didn't come to me. He didn't call me. He didn't ask me for anything. He just started at the bottom, hauling lumber, sorting screws, sweeping up sawdust. He works here from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. for no pay. Then, I know from Sarah's quiet reports, he goes to his night job at a Home Depot, stocking shelves from 6 p.m. to midnight. He and Brenda are divorced. She took what little cash was left and moved back in with her parents in another state. Their influencer careers were destroyed by the videos that leaked from the party. Mark is living in a small one-bedroom apartment over somebody's garage, on the other side of town. He's building it himself, from the ground up. He sets the board down on the sawhorses, and as he straightens up, he uses his forearm to wipe the sweat from his face. He sees me. He sees me watching him. His first instinct is to look away, ashamed. I can see the flinch. But he doesn't. He holds my gaze. He's thinner. He looks tired, bone-tired. But his eyes, for the first time in years, his eyes are clear. There's no greed in them, no entitlement, no lies. He just nods. It's a small, short, respectful nod. A nod from one working man to another. I hold his gaze for a long, quiet beat. Then, I nod back. The tough love. The amputation. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to build. But seeing him there, sweating, learning, working, I realize it wasn't an act of destruction. It was an act of construction. I turn back to my group of volunteers, my heart a little lighter. "All right," I say, my voice stronger. "Let's build this wall." Elias, VO. I turn back to the work, the good, honest work. As I show the kid how to line up the nail, I feel the solid, familiar weight of my father's hammer in my hand. I spent my whole life building things that last. I almost forgot that the hardest thing to build is character. And sometimes, you find out the foundation is rotten. You find out the frame is crooked. You can't just patch it. You can't just cover it with drywall and paint. You have to tear it all down, right to the foundation, and start over. It's the only way to build it right. Narrator, V.O. Elias had to make an impossible choice. He had to tear his son's life down to the foundation, in the hope that one day Mark could learn to build something real for himself. So let me ask you, what would you have done in his shoes? Have you ever had to choose tough love to help someone you care about? Let us know your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, you can support us by sending a super thanks so we can keep bringing more stories like this. We're looking forward to reading your comments. Thank you for all of your support, and we'll see you in the next story.